All right. Well, thank you all for coming. And as you can see, we're back in front of the RNC. We've got such an important message, and I wanted to come back today because all across the country, millions of Americans are waking up and they're concerned about what's happening, and they're energetic, and they're really nervous about the direction of what's going on. Just stand in front of her. Just stand right in front of her.
Okay. Because you don't like the message?
It's because it's just a classic leftist organization.
Just
So
count every
no,
vote.
just stand right here. Listen, just stand right here. Don't want to let her do what she's going to do. Listen, across the country, people are so excited and so concerned about the corruption that we've seen. And the corruption that we've seen is, listen, if you're not going to stop, you're going to have a problem. Just stand right here.
I was just standing quietly,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Just relax.
And this is the kind of corruption that we've seen, this kind of funded leftist organizations that cause trouble, whether it's Soros, whether it's Planned Parenthood's money. So the country is now looking up and they're saying, will the corruption that we've seen, it started with the Russia hoax, the coup, it went through the media and the pollsters, corruption of the pollsters, and now we see corruption of our election and our Constitution by the people in these states by design. And so the American people are rising up, but one key group of people that we're asking to stand up and stop the steal and do your job is the elected Republicans across the country. Tomorrow, Stop the Steal will be in all 50 capitals. They'll be having gatherings, not just in the states that they're stealing the election, but in all 50 capitals, and saying to the elected officials, stand up for we the people and stop the steal and do your job. Do your job. Now behind me is the Republican National Committee, the building here. There's 168 members from 50 states and a few territories. They raise hundreds of millions of dollars, and they are on Donald Trump's name, and they reap the benefits of his policies, his inclusion of minorities, everything he did. And they also saw the coattails, massive coattails in this election because of what he did. And we're asking these men and women to not forget from whence they came, not forget who led our party, not forget the issues and the people that stood behind this president and them. I'm very proud that Kevin McCarthy, after our press conference yesterday, he reached out to President Trump. I don't think I've seen enough commitment from Kevin McCarthy in terms of getting his caucus out there, but I'm glad he reached out. I'm very pleased that Leader McConnell put out a statement that we have to make sure the election is not corrupt. But frankly, the men and women who benefit from this president's success and from the millions and millions of what we the people did need to step up and do better. So we're calling for these members to do your job and to step up and make sure that the people know that the corruption that has happened can't stand, or our Constitution is corrupted. That's what's at stake right now. So I asked, because we had such a great success yesterday and had such great coverage, and thank you to many of the outlets. We had millions of people. I know Breitbart streamed it live, and there was hundreds of thousands watching. So across the country and the world, they're watching if we'll protect our Constitution. And one of the people that I thought needed to speak, and I wish I'd said yesterday, but we came back today, was former Congressman Jim Ryun. Congressman Jim Ryun was the world record holder for many years. He's an extraordinary success story, and in Congress, he was a leader who was respected for being conservative and principled, but a man that was a happy warrior, that people understood was a good man on the side of the American people. And he stood with us yesterday, and today I asked him to say a few words about what his concerns are and why it's important to stop the steal. So without further ado, Congressman Jim Ryun. Congressman?
Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much. I'm here with my wife, Ann, today because we're standing up for America. I stand here today on behalf of every citizen of our great constitutional republic. Over 200 years ago, a grand experiment began giving every American the privilege and opportunity to express themselves by casting their votes for the candidate of their choice in elections, trusting that each vote would be honestly counted. Today, that institution, based on integrity, honesty, and transparency, is being threatened. This is about making sure every legal vote is counted in a transparent and trustworthy way. This is about the American people being able to trust the process and not have half the country thinking the election was stolen. This is about our America as we know it, not the America the progressives desire to implement. The American people deserve to have a process they can trust, as well as individuals and institutions that they can trust. We are seeing right now the undercuts of freedom, fair elections, and the integrity of the vote. As a former Olympian, rules determine how the race or game is played. In a football game, if you only win by moving the goalpost, you undermine the integrity of the game. In a mile race of 4 laps, you decide at the end of 3 laps, the only way that you can win is to change the finish line. The rule of law that we Americans cherish fends off chaos and brings about peace and security. The rule of law, the rules of the way the game is played, cannot be changed midway through the game. The process of counting every legal vote is paramount to our great republic living a long and peaceful life, and is the key to our bright future. We will prevail. Thank you for coming. I will not be taking questions.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you very much. And if you listen to those words, and we can get you a copy of the text if you'd like. Listen, what's at stake? I was walking down the street right here. A woman came up to me and said, "Can you believe it? They stole a seat in the U.S. Senate from an African-American man, John James." That's what Michigan did. Right? This is what's happened is the corruption of our election process. And when people come up to you and they'll come up and say, "Did you see voter fraud?" We now know that voters that are dead voted. That hasn't happened since Kennedy stole the election in 1960. You know, we now know that the machine politicians in Philadelphia and other places have tried to change the elections. There's plenty of examples of voter fraud. And what we need now, if we want our Constitution to remain uncorrupted, is we need every single election now, especially in the contested places where we have bad actors, to be audited in such a way that we tell who committed what problems. And if the election turns out that it's someplace like California where even though there was rampant fraud, the one candidate still wins, so be it. But right now what we know today is the two groups that are trying to change our nation are the left and the Democrat Party, as well as the media that has a narrative to shut this down. And if it looks familiar to the American people, it should. It's what the hoax that was the Russia hoax did to Mike Flynn, and the Mueller report did, the Mueller investigation did to the American people. And all of these things, what we saw is we saw a corruption of American life. And when the American people see aided and abetted, isn't this silly? It's funny to see. Aided and abetted by the media. And here's the last thing I'll say about this. The big tech companies have censored the President of the United States for the last 3 days. Now, what you think about the big tech companies, they're picking winners and losers. I don't care whether you like that or not. The people in America that think it's good that it's happening, you need to recognize how this can turn out for we the people, not just for your candidate. And so today we're calling on all the members, whether it's Ronna McDaniel, the RNC, the other members of the RNC, as well as the elected officials, to stand up, do your job, and stop the steal. Our Constitution was designed for when fraud happens, we know how to get rid of the bad actors. We have the rule of law, we have the Constitution, and we look forward to all these members, Republican members, standing up and taking care of that. I'm happy to take a question or two if there are any.
What would be your message to people who are listening to the mainstream media saying that this election is over? What's your message to people who think this is over?
Well, the question was, what's my message to the people that are hearing that the election is over? It's a lie. It's a lie like the polls were lies. It's a lie like the Russia hoax was a lie. It's a lie like the Mueller report. These are lies being told. If they were being told by a foreign government, by the way, they would be disinformation and we'd have prosecution. The simple fact is this. The American people need to know the election is still in doubt. President Trump won the election on election day, but now it's trying to be stolen from us. And that's what the American people have to do, is fight through the media, fight through the big tech, and stick together with each other. And our effort, which is you can go to stopthesteal.us, is just a clearinghouse for more people that will get together and fight for the truth. And by the way, study your Constitution, because when we have these problems and when we have significant corruption in office, in the powerful people that are in charge, we have remedies. The remedies are in our Constitution that holds us together. Other countries will fall when an election is this corrupt. Our country won't, because our Constitution is the fallback that protects us. But it starts with the men and women in these buildings, the Republicans, congressmen, congresswomen, U.S. senators, to understand what's at stake. Other questions?
Are you hoping this is going to make it to the Supreme Court?
No, I have no preference on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court should decide again on our Constitution. I don't have a preference. I think that I think right now what I would prefer is that the people of the states continue to rise up and demand that their elected officials do their jobs. So if you do your job in Pennsylvania and you're a leader there, this will stop and this will be done right. So if the Supreme Court has to adjudicate how a decision about the Constitution or something else is, we welcome that. We always have. Again, we've never been afraid in this country of the rule of law. It's been set up that way specifically. What we are afraid of is corruption that tries to take away our rights. Other questions or comments?
What kinds of voter fraud are we seeing? Where are we seeing?
Well, I might have said at the beginning, my name is Ed Martin. I run the Phyllis Schlafly organizations. We're based in St. Louis, and my office is, I have an office in D.C. also, and we're all across the country, Eagles. But before that, I'm an attorney, and before that I was actually, I practiced law, and I was the chairman of the Board of Elections in St. Louis City. So I know exactly what this is. I know exactly how fraud happens. There's all kinds of layers of fraud. There's fraud in registration. We're seeing rampant registration problems because, again, they're trying to utilize the mail-in ballots. We're seeing a problem of signatures and verifications. We're seeing dead people voting. Once you have a system that's corrupt, there are many ways you can game the system. You know, when you run an election board, if you ask someone honestly who runs an election board well, they say you have to pick a system, as Jim Ryan just said, pick a system and say how it's going to work and let everybody work through it. The verification process, one of the things that we've always demanded in this country was that both parties, we only have two, but parties that are opposing have an interest in transparency. And what we're seeing is wholesale things happening behind closed doors. One of the reasons that most of the European Union nations ban mail-in ballots is because they know that too much happens in secret that can't be verified. In other words, you have things happening off-site and mailed in or dropped off. So the examples of voter fraud are so endemic now that they bring into question the election, especially in these states, as corrupt. And when it's corrupt, it has to be acted on by our nation and by our leaders. And that's what I think we're all demanding. And again, these leaders can do it here. Other questions or comments? She's going to get to her whiteboard. Yes, sir.
So what do you have to say to all of the liberal snowflakes out there that just can't handle the thought of another 4 years of President Trump?
Well, look, I don't have a. You'll smile when you say I'm a happy warrior. The reason I care about politics and I love America is that it's the best place for every person to have a great life, whether they're liberal. Nancy Pelosi is made in the image and likeness of God. I can't believe it, but it's true. But so there you are. And so, but what I will say is, when I walk down the street here and someone makes a snide remark about Trump, I've never done that about Biden. That's not my thing, right? So, but here's what the liberal snowflakes in this country should understand: is the freedom they enjoy to act like this. I mean, this is act like that's America. In other places, you've already been taken away and put, and what we will see if the Harris-Biden administration is able to steal the election is you will see that they will use their power. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about the rule of law. They care only about power. And the Susan Rices of the world, who have been exposed as at least bad actors, if not illegal actors, will be in power again to continue to get away with it. So to the liberal snowflakes that can't believe that so many Americans voted for and believe in Donald Trump's policies, what I say to them is, enjoy America. It's what you're enjoying. You may not recognize it, but understand there is a lot more to lose for all of us, not just conservatives, if this corrupt election goes forward and changes the decision of the people. Other questions?
Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey said that there is no substantial evidence or fraud that President Trump is claiming. What would you say to him?
Well, I'd be generous to Senator Toomey and say he must not be looking at the same things that most Americans are looking at. I don't know, maybe he is. But if he is, he's already said he's retiring. He doesn't have an election to face. He has probably other interests. I would say if he can't stand up for the people, he should resign. I think it's a better thing to do. Let someone else get in that position. I would rather have someone who doesn't love the Constitution, doesn't believe in the rule of law, be in office than have someone who says he does and isn't going to do it. Pennsylvania is wholesale, showing how fraud can be set up as a system. And again, remember, what I'm saying here is we're very blessed that our Constitution sets up a way that we can fight through this corruption. Because if the corruption's let to stand, our system is decimated. The people in this country will not vote in Montana if they think the election's stolen in Pennsylvania. They won't vote in Idaho if they think the people in Michigan are stealing it. If Detroit gets to rule the country because of their fraud and corruption, then the country's dramatically changed, and it won't survive in the way that we love it. Other questions or comments?
The Trump administration talked very early on about mail-in ballots and the potential for fraud. Should the GOP Congresspeople have done more?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to talk about failings, the Congress, when it was controlled by the Republicans and senators, many of us that know voter fraud said there should have been a national photo ID requirement. That changes things. Paul Ryan didn't want to do that. Mitch McConnell couldn't get that done. I mean, there's ways to look backwards. The president has been ringing the bells of crisis for months now on the mail-in ballots. We know that. We all know that. Again, Europe knows it. America knows it. Australia knows it. Mail-in ballots are a recipe for fraud. And when you put mail-in ballots together with actors who won't respect the rule of law, like in Pennsylvania, Attorney General Shapiro said what he was going to do. He didn't care what the truth was. He said what he was going to do. So you put those two together and you have a real problem. So I always would like to see conservatives do more. Many conservatives believe we have such good arguments, we'll always win. And what the Democrats and the left have shown is they don't care about arguments. Joe Biden didn't make an argument. He just stayed in his basement, and they're using pure power politics and corruption to try to take it over. One more question?
Yeah, what should voters do in these states where there's
Well,
potential?
all voters should first of all be aware of what's happening and be energized about the problem. This is a corruption that is at the heart of America, and so they should be energized and focused and get motivated to do something. Secondly, I'd encourage you. I'm here encouraging people. One thing I know is that elected officials who hear from the voters and they're told, stand up for me, it has an impact. And so if you're in a state where it's at risk, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, calling your legislator matters. If you're not in a state, it still matters. So, but people need to get ready. This is not a time to get ready for Thanksgiving. I mean, the Thanksgiving is a long way off. I hope we can give thanks for a lot of things. Right now, the people need to be motivated. If you're a Trump supporter, your vote is being stolen from you. The corruption is taking away from you what you dream of and what you want to be. And so they need to be motivated and be offended by what's happened and then be committed. Again, America, we have a way to solve this. Constitution and the rule of law, and we need to go about it. We don't need a decision desk at Fox News telling America who their success is. We don't need Jack Dorsey and his team to tell us who succeeds and fails. That's not America. That's never been America, and that's why we have to fight through this. All right, everybody, thank you for coming. Appreciate you being here.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
and I hope you got a lesson from the teaching I was giving to these people here. Let's start with this. The voters have spoken. Suck it up. It's called democracy. That's number one. Number two, let's see here. We have, there is no fraud. The only fraud is in the White House. Let's see what else we have here.
Give me your card, I can email it to you.
In this teaching in
Got
front
no
of the
pictures of unborn
RNC.
babies that have been slaughtered in the woods?
Mail-in votes are
Oh, no
legitimate.
babies.
Mail-in votes are legitimate. Count them all. We wouldn't be in this situation if you had allowed the counting of the mail-in votes before Election Day. I got two more important ones here. Don't spread lies to your base. They're armed. We don't need people dying in the street for your lies.
Okay.
And the last one, important for this crowd, because they don't believe in science, they don't believe in math,
Oh, you want to give it to me?
and so it's just a little advice for your safety and ours. Math
you're
is
afraid
real,
to be around us. I don't have
science
a mask
is real.
on.
There is a pandemic, wear a mask. For your safety, our safety.
Please,
Don't-
I'm not, don't,
I know you
don't
don't-
you
I
worry
don't
about
engage.
me.
Don't engage.
I worry about you because
These are
you
not
don't
healthy.
you worry
These aren't
about
healthy
me.
people. These are not healthy people.
So
Don't
that's
engage.
the teaching from the reality side of all of this. Fortunately, these folks are losing. Trump is finally going to be out of the White House. And then we can start pressuring for Biden because he's not a savior either. People have to stand up for the things that we believe in. But time to get real here.
Okay.
Count all the votes. You're losing. You've had 4 years. You're up big time.
Yeah, I'm going.